what's the deal with eating less food, less often, yet feeling less hungry? Hi, in case you're new to this channel and don't know who I am Slick Nick, your personal keto bro. Not a doctor, not a dietitian, not a nutritionist, or even a personal trainer, just some random guy who's approaching his 40th birthday and getting closer and closer to that goal of just 17% body fat. That's all I'm aiming for. I don't need a six pack. I don't need to impress anybody. I just need to feel comfortable in my own skin. And for me, 17% body fat for a guy who will be 40, I can feel good about that. That's a reachable goal, and that's what I'm aiming for. So this has been a journey for me. I've been telling it in many of these videos that people love to say in the comment section of videos, you should do your research, and then they'll throw up a link in the comment that I'll never read. The whole concept is I'm doing research on myself. If this keto thing works and is effective and it's efficient and it works long term, I'll prove it over time. And if it doesn't work, I'll stop doing it. That was the case with me being a vegan. I was a vegan for 5.5 years before I started gaining fat, and I knew I had to change something. So as long as it works, I'll continue to do it. But I just want to share my testimonial here. I can absolutely say I'm eating less food, less often, I'm less hungry, and I have more energy, and I have more fat loss. And to a lot of people, that sounds like a paradox. It seems that, well, how could you be less hungry if you're eating less often? That doesn't even make sense. And especially if you're eating less food, it seems like if you're starving yourself, then by the time you eat, you would overeat. So how does that work out? So I'll explain it. So in case you're new to this concept, carbohydrates spike your insulin. Spiking your insulin causes you to store fat. And it also causes you to be hungry. So you keep eating. That whole concept of, have you heard that it takes like 20 minutes for your brain to get the message from your stomach that you're full? Have you heard about that before? Well, I believe that now more than ever, now that I'm keto, because what I feel I've discovered is that when you're not eating carbohydrates, you don't have that problem. Your brain knows when you're full because you're eating fat, and you're making that the number one thing. Twice as many grams that I consume of fat every day compared to protein. Now, protein is going to spike your insulin. It's also going to make you feel full, and it's important to have protein, and it's important that you get it so that your body doesn't cannibalize itself and lose muscle over the. So that's why for me, 75 grams of complex protein a day is what I'm looking at, and twice that in fat. But for me, I've learned that once I actually am full and I get enough, my body knows it immediately, because the 25 to 50 grams of carbs a day I have are at the very end of the day. And that's another trick to this whole thing. I kind of slipped into keto by starting out with carb backloading, because I realized once I learned that carbs make you hungry and store fat. What if you just wait to the end of the day? And that's what I do. And I need very little carbohydrates because my fat is my fuel for my brain and my body. So I have quite clarity with my brain. Doing most of even my work from home is done before I even eat my first meal of the day. So that's what I found. I'm less hungry because I'm not spiking my insulin, which therefore will trigger a hormone called ghrelin. That's what makes you hungry. So I'm just not inviting ghrelin to the party here in my stomach. It's not invited. And at the very end of the day, it's too late. I don't really need to burn much energy at the end of the day when I finally have a few carbs, when I've already had so much fat and protein. So I'm eating less often. I'm eating less food because when I do eat, it's just bam, fat, protein. So my body gets the message quickly. So less often, less food, and less hungry, less fat on my body because my body's not storing, it hardly has a chance to store fat since I'm burning off my own fat as energy along with the fat that I do eat when I finally do eat during that 5-hour window between 2 and 7. So this is how it works. But for people who don't do keto, they're not living it like I am, they can't comprehend it. And I'll tell you, as a kid, if we were to travel back to 30 years ago when I was 9, here's who I was. I was this kid who was a little kid, but man, could I eat. I would go to Burger King and I'd get a double Whopper combo and eat the whole thing, and no one could believe that I could eat it. I'd go to a steakhouse, eat the whole steak, plus I'd have a huge salad and all these other stuff. I had an appetite. I could totally eat that. But also now I see I constantly had ghrelin going on and I had insulin spiking. Granted, my metabolism was clearly a lot higher back then because I didn't really gain any fat on my body really until age 19. That's when I guess I entered manhood from childhood and things changed, and I accept that. But if I were to tell this version of myself told that 9-year-old version, I would not be able to understand it. But how are you not hungry? How do you not have a headache? Well, I do have MCT oil in my coffee. It's about 100 calories worth of pure fat, which is able to sustain me from 6 o'clock until 10 or 11 when I do the same thing again, but just with some butter then. So I've consumed a couple hundred calories of pure fat by 2 o'clock, but I'm fine. I don't have headaches, and I'm working out every morning. I'm weight training. I'm doing HIIT. I'm doing TUT, and I'm walking 2 or 3 miles. So I'm not the exception to the rule. What I am is a person who's actually doing keto. I want to remind everyone, the people who say, oh, I could never do that, everything in moderation. Those people are people who don't do keto. They've never experienced it. As for me, so many of problems in life have went away since I switched to this, but I was open-minded. I had to be open-minded to think, why don't I give this a go? Why don't I commit 100% and just try it out? And that's been a while because I forgot all about this, because this is so much better in every way for me. So, closing note, if you don't do keto, you're never going to be able to experience these things. People who say, I could never do that, really what they're saying is, I don't want to do that. And if they were honest with themselves and each other, that would be a better thing. But it's a victim mentality to say that wouldn't work for me. Of course it doesn't work for you because you're not doing it. That is a lot of the criticism that people have, especially online, about keto. The people who love to criticize the most tend to be the people who are not actually doing the thing, or they have some kind of interest in why they have to keep promoting this concept of counting calories and consuming grains. They're probably in on it somehow. What sells products in America is making sure that we continue to have grains in food, that we basically put sugar in our meat and meat in our sugar, but we've always got that sugar or grains in there somehow, those carbohydrates, so that we remain hungry. Conspiracy, man. Think about it. Think about it. If we're constantly eating carbs and we're eating first thing when we get up, what's that gonna mean? Everybody's constantly hungry. They're not like this keto bro right here. Your comments belong right here.